Greetings, High Plains Library District users. This is the September 2025 newsletter audio edition. Just in case you were worried about it, there was no August newsletter. We had this one come out actually in late August because we had a big event coming up in early September, Yes Fest. So that's how it worked out. So you didn't miss one. We're all good. So we've got, I think, 3 articles in here. We've got a message from the future, which is a Yes Fest related article. We've got an article called Cataloging, Save Time, Save Money, Save Your Marriage, ? And we've got a Cult Movie Vault, Back to the Future fan edits. So without further ado, we'll just go straight into Back to Yes Fest and a message from the future. By the way, all the branding for Yes Fest this year is very Back to the Future centric. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of where this is all coming from in case you don't have those visuals. So here we go. A message from the future. And this is by David Sharp. Hey, I've been looking for you. It's me, YesBot. Well, I'm not exactly the YesBot you know and love, but the YesBot you know will eventually become me. I am YesBot from the future. I've come here in a time machine from the year Blip. Oh, right, I forgot you're still in an age where you count years by numbers. In the future, we name years with sound effects. Now, don't be alarmed. I realize people get concerned about robots visiting them from the future. Rest assured, I'm not here to terminate anything but a dull day. You see, I've seen the future, and I need to warn you about something. The Youth Engineering and Science Festival, YesFest 2025, is coming on Saturday, September 20th, and it's going to be amazing. The High Plains Library District will gather science and engineering experts of all kinds to provide one amazing day of fun, hands-on activities, and mind-blowing demonstrations. Whether you're into space science, drones, bending light beams, the science of nature, engineering, or whatever, you're likely to find it at YesFest. So what's the problem? Why have I come all the way back to the year 2025 to tell you all this? Because in my time, we've discovered that there are so many people who will miss out. I can't tell you how many times I've sat with someone consoling them while they sobbed and told me, I can't believe I missed YesFest. If only someone had told me. I thought a festival that huge would cost way too much money, but it was free. YesBot, it was free. Oh, why didn't I go? Over 1,600 people attended the 2024 YesFest, and I was so happy to see them. We danced and laughed, and we scienced. Oh, how we scienced. In the year Blip, Merriam-Webster ruled science can now be properly used as a verb. We suspect the popularity of YesFest weighed heavily in that decision. However, there are still so many people, hundreds of people, who have still never attended a single YesFest. People who don't even know how exciting this festival will be. Don't you be one of them. Let me save you from the misery of unbearable FOMO. YesFest is coming, and you can be a part of it. Don't find yourself 10 years down the road, the year Auga, by the way, wondering why you didn't listen to a robot from the future. Here's what you need to know. Location, Link Library Innovation Center, 501 8th Avenue, Greeley, Colorado, 80631. Time, Saturday, September 20th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Cost, absolutely free. Fun around every corner, boredom nowhere to be found. Are you convinced yet? What else do you need? Come with me if you want to science. Sorry for that half-hearted Arnold impression. I don't have a great Arnold impression up my sleeve, so just did a tiny little twinge of it. All right, next we've got cataloging. Save time, save money, save your marriage? Okay, the marriage part is a bit far, but the rest works. Sometimes technology solves a problem, like the hands-free Kindle page turner thing that solves the problem of having my delicate fingers out of the covers and exposed to the elements in winter, which, being like 98 degrees today, doesn't sound like a big problem. Sometimes technology in solving one problem creates another, like the hands-free Kindle page turner being made of opaque plastic that actually blocks a very small portion of the screen. So for about 2 lines of every page, I get to guess what Jeff Strand was thinking in the middle of his sentences. I'm usually wrong. This is why one of us is a best-selling novelist and the other is a non-selling novelist. Streaming video has solved the problem, sort of. I guess it depends on whether you consider not having access to everything ever committed to video a problem, which, as someone who used to keep all of his movie theater ticket stubs, I do. But in giving us so much access, the technology of streaming video has created another problem. My problem. I like a lot of movies. I have some shows I return to time and again, but over the last several years, I personally developed a new show, one I watch more than any other, even though I hate it. It's the show that I direct myself. Sometimes it's short, sometimes it's so long that it's longer than any movie I have available. The show is me browsing streaming services. Yes, I can spend hours clicking through the categories, the menus, all the things that grab my attention when I jump on a streaming service. I've spent longer at this window display of streaming, longer looking for something to watch, than I've spent cumulatively in movie theaters over the last 5 years. And this had to stop. Not just because I was royally annoying my wife, but also because, for other reasons, I'm sure. None come to mind right away, but take my word for it, she was over my scrolling habit. My solution. When I tell someone to make a catalog of something like their watch lists, they usually get a little nervous. Don't be. The catalog does not have to be sophisticated. It doesn't need to have a bunch of categories and cross-indexing. It doesn't need to force you to learn Linux or whatever. A catalog can be as simple as a pen and paper notebook you keep near the couch. You can start there. I did a spreadsheet. Me. And I stink at spreadsheets, but my watch list catalog was simple enough that even I, king of the dum-dums, managed it. I went through my watch lists and added everything to the sheet, and here are the columns I used. Title, service, movie or TV, new or seen it before, want to watch, Pete Solo watch, movie night watch, rowing. Most of those are pretty self-explanatory, but in a bit I'll get to some of the weirder ones, what they mean and why they're super useful. A catalog gives you more control. Streaming service apps will serve up things that they most want you to watch. They will promote them more, you'll see them show up in more categories, and you'll be sick of them before you've even watched them. With your spreadsheet, you don't have to be influenced by what the services throw between you and the best stuff and the ways they change cover art or other things to convince you to watch something that, well, sucks. Another way services determine which things you see has to do with popularity. What is everyone else watching? I don't know about you, but I think everyone but me has terrible taste. I don't really care what everyone else is watching. That rarely, if ever, gives me a Stuart Gordon movie, and where would I be without Castle Freaks and Reanimators and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids? Wait, hold on. You're telling me that the man behind From Beyond, in which, as the IMDb parental guide puts it, a woman's eyeball is sucked out and spit out on the floor, then a man sucks the woman's brains out through her eye socket. You're telling me that Stuart Gordon developed the romp in which kids are shrunken down and, I don't know, learn about family? You can prioritize your watches. I added a column, Want to Watch, to my catalog, and I rate movies from 1 to 5 in terms of how urgently I want to see them. If I'm not sure what to watch next, I can sort by that column. Boom, I've got a short list of the things I want to watch the most. You can prioritize your watches in different ways too. If you know the date something might be leaving a streaming service, that's an option. If you know it's a relatively new movie, those tend to come and go more quickly, so you might try and get to those first. By the way, while I don't like to be too strict in my recommendations, I never use a 1 to 10 scale, always 1 to 5. What's the difference between a 5 and a 6 out of 10? Hardly anything. And don't even get me started on people who use a 10-point scale and then give half stars, like this is a 7.5. Seriously? You're working on a 20-point scale? Tell me, what's the difference between a 16 out of 20 and a 17 out of 20? Look, I'll be blunt about this. Use a 1 to 10 scale if you want to make rating things a hobby, if the rating process is where you get your jollies. If you want to have useful ratings that make it easy to sort things, 1 to 5 is the way to go. You can make better categories. I'm married. Yes, thank you. I never thought it would happen either, but here we are. I am a beacon of hope for us all. I like movies, my wife likes movies, and we like a lot of the same movies. However, there are certain types of movies that we don't agree on. When we watched the trailer for the movie In a Violent Nature, which didn't start us off on the right foot with the title, and when the trailer said something about a gore-soaked ballet, it was clear that this was a movie for me to watch solo when she goes to the Boulder Arts Festival and I ate an entire frozen pizza by myself without even cutting it, because the real monster is not on the screen, the real monster is me. When I bring up a list of melt movies, those are quick to be added to my watch list, but they are definitely not for everyone. I mean, when you look up the movie The Mildew from Planet Xanadar, and when one of the cast members is simply credited as Doctor Eaten by Rats, we all know who is into that movie. This is why I created a category for Pete Solo Watch. These are movies that, when I'm watching something alone, make for good choices. On the flip side, I have an issue where, occasionally, I've watched a movie that my wife would like to see as well. As those of you in a relationship know, this is one of the absolute biggest hurdles for mostly happy couples in 2025. You watched that without me? I wanted to watch that. I'm working on a Breaking Bad-esque series about me trying to hide the fact that I watched an entire season of British Bake Show without my wife. Oh, the web of lies, the deceit. How far will I go to keep my awful secret? To help with that, I have a category called Movie Night Watch that holds those movies we're both interested in. Rowing movies. Here's a hill I'll die on. The rowing machine is the most boring piece of exercise equipment on the planet. I mean, sure, perhaps you go to your gym and do it in a class, and there's lots of music and lighting that's such weird colors the gym has named itself after the particular hue of the lighting. But when I row, it's in the garage by myself with a plain wall about 10 feet from my face. Aha! But someone at the Concept 2 factory knows my pain, and they added a little clippy thing that perfectly holds a tablet that plays movies. I went through my spreadsheet, and I added an X in a column next to movies that I thought would be super entertaining, movies without a slow moment, or shows that keep me pretty gripped, because these are great to watch while I exercise. And as a bonus psychological warfare tactic I've placed on myself, I only let myself watch those things when I'm rowing. You want to watch The Expanse? Guess you better get on that rower. Add some fun to movie night. A database lets you randomly select a watch from all the movies in your watch lists. It's actually a super fun way to pick a movie night movie. Roll dice, get a random number generator, or maybe 3D print a mechanical dice roller at one of our libraries to help you pick. I'll let you in on a secret with all this as well. When you pick a movie and it sucks, it somehow lessens the sting when you didn't pick it, but fate did. Hey, I can't be held responsible for us watching Slaughterhouse, the movie in which a drug-addled sloth murders a bunch of people in a sorority house. That was destiny. A catalog makes picking much easier. This is the absolute best reason to catalog your watch lists. You no longer have to spend hours of your life scrolling through streaming services in search of hidden gems. You know how you hear stats about the percent of your life spent in a bed or how much of your life you'll spend in your car? The 2020 version of that is absolutely going to be how much of your life you've spent browsing streaming services. Looking through a spreadsheet is so much faster than clicking around streaming services. Why? Because it's boring. Without the graphics and scrolling effects, without that random slot machine mentality that you get with streaming platforms, the decisions are much clearer. No more auto-playing trailers, no more changing cover art, no more categories that don't even make sense and force you to click through out of morbid curiosity. Visually striking, cerebral, experimental movies? Come on, Netflix, that category wouldn't even fit on the top of a video store shelf. Your catalog is plain, it's boring, and that's as it should be. Because the catalog of movies isn't the thing, watching great stuff is where it's at. The more bored I am by a spreadsheet, the faster I pick something, and the less time I waste. Provided you don't consider watching melt movies a waste of time. I am open to arguments that this is a waste of my time. And last, we've got Cult Movie Vault Back to the Future fan edits. With Yes Fest coming, and with so much Back to the Future theming to all the publicity, it seemed like the obvious movie to talk about in this column would be Back to the Future. Only problem is, Back to the Future is in no way a cult movie. It's a stone-cold classic, one of those movies that's so near perfect that you can't really imagine improving on it. It's a rare movie that's both popular and kind of a masterpiece, a perfect distillation of the art, other things that people who would know stuff about movies would say about good movies, which we don't really cover here. I mean, sure, most of us could think of one or two changes, but hey, I recently watched a movie called Danger USA, a film so impenetrably stupid that it threw me into a brief existential crisis. We exist, we've come to be one way or another, and this is what we've done with the gift of life? Danger USA is all about a lady who's trying to somehow gain access to a dream machine her father made and prevent it from falling into the wrong hands because if it did, something would happen. I'm not sure what the dream machine does, so it's hard to know specifically how it could be exploited by evildoers. And at one point, our hero tries to infiltrate the bad guy's hideout, and she has to change her appearance because they know who she is, so she puts her hair in a ponytail. And that's it. And the VHS box prominently features a lady undressing, which doesn't happen in the movie, and touts Dan Haggerty, Grizzly Adams himself, as one of the stars, even though he plays a completely inconsequential role and maybe has 5 total minutes of screen time. And, No, Pete, we're talking about Back to the Future, not the ways in which Danger USA has haunted your every waking moment. What's left to say about Back to the Future that hasn't been said? It's been analyzed, deciphered. We've seen the stories about Eric Stoltz and his replacement with Michael J. Fox and how that replacement prompted the replacement of Melora Hardin, Jan from The Office with Claudia Wells. We've even got real-life hoverboards. Well, sort of. I'm not the only person who saw those and was like, so they're called hoverboards, and the one thing they're named for they don't actually do, right? How is it legal to call your product a hoverboard when it has wheels? Why not just call pizza muscle growth superfood meal if we can just name things with total disregard for their function? However, in scouring the internet for something Back to the Future to talk about, I did find something pretty interesting, something worth talking about. The Back to the Future fan edit community. What is a fan edit? We've all seen a movie and had the thought, right? The I could do better moment. A fan edit is the result when someone has that thought, can't let it go, and decides to do something about it. Basically, a fan of a movie who maybe thinks that movie could use a little reconfiguration will take the movie, usually a digital file, cut some stuff out, add in some deleted scenes, and change a movie. Sometimes in big ways, sometimes in very minor ways. The idea of a fan edit might sound a little weird and obsessive, and it is. But when you mention specific movies, it starts to make sense. For example, the Star Wars prequels are one of the big players in the fan edit scene, which makes sense. Star Wars fans are nerds. Those prequels came out right around the time something like video editing software was becoming more available, and let's face it, there's certainly something to be gained by editing out a thing or two. Sand, am I right? The Hobbit movies have also been fan edited quite a bit due to that trilogy's length and, length. Book people were still baffled by taking the shortest of 4 books and turning it into 3 movies, right? Terminator 3, Spider-Man 3, Superman 3, lots of third movies have gotten the treatment. Maybe a basic way to think of this, sculptors will say that they don't make a statue. The statue exists in the marble, and the sculptor just chips away at everything that's not the sculpture. Likewise, in a bloated, ill-conceived movie, there may still be a great piece of art. It just requires some chipping away of, galactic scenic procedures. Some odd fan edits. Sometimes a fan edit isn't about fixing a problem, it's about doing something completely different with the raw material. Or maybe it's about fixing a problem, but one that only a small number of people can actually see. I have some examples of some odder fan edits. 3 Effing Bears Rambo Grindhouse. If you grew up thinking of Rambo as a shirtless, oiled-up monster blasting away with a machine gun, only to learn that the original movie, First Blood, was a fairly serious-minded, heavier watch, 3 Effing Bears is for you. 3 Effing Bears follows the events of the first Rambo film with the other films spliced in as flashbacks, and the whole thing is narrated by John Rambo. The result is a much sillier, much more action-oriented Rambo series that feels more like the sort of thing they would make an NES game and a Saturday morning cartoon out of, which they totally did with the original Rambo series because, hey, it was the 80s and nobody took issue with Rambo for kids, or for that matter, with a RoboCop cartoon. Jurassic Park, Blood, Sex, and Dinosaurs. Imagine Jurassic Park, but made by Roger Corman, R.I.P., you legend. Super cheap, lots of stop-motion dinosaurs, lots of scratches on the print, and even accidentally having the entire crew in the shot at one point. Also, the soundtrack is replaced, and the scene where Newman is heisting dinosaur eggs is just chef's kiss. Bateman Begins. Combining some of Christopher Nolan's Batman movies with American Psycho, plus a dash of The Machinist, the result is a very, very different arc for old Bruce Wayne. Well, not very different, but maybe the dark part of Dark Knight is more emphasized. I was about to say I couldn't imagine Batman with a chainsaw, but then I Googled it first because of course Batman's had a chainsaw at some point. Boston Translation. A movie that replaces the mumblecore Lost in Translation's Japanese dialogue with heavily Boston accented English. As someone with extremely rudimentary Japanese skills, I would be hard-pressed to say which movie I have a harder time understanding. Snowpiercer, the Willy Wonka cut. Based on the Wonka-Piercer fan theory that says Charlie Bucket eventually became a genius inventor and used his Wonka resources to build the globe-spanning super train, the movies Snowpiercer and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory are combined into one. Tonally weird with the exception of that whole boat cruise nightmare portion. Back to the Future fan edits. And now we've arrived in the future. Or the present. Whatever, we've arrived at talking about Back to the Future fan edits. Flux capacitor fluxing. The simplest concept. Combine all 3 Back to the Future movies into 325 minutes of fun. Well, okay, I know some of you claim to not love all of Part 3, so let's call it 299 minutes of fun, plus some other minutes that are less fun but not without their charms. I mean, why not? If you've ever wanted to trick yourself into staying up all night because you'll go to bed as soon as the movie's over, this is the movie to take you deep into that clock face. It's not like an incredibly creative endeavor, but there's a definite appeal to setting up a one-movie marathon. Back to the Future, the Greater Scott edition. Let's point out here that the names of these fan edits are often awesome. This version combines and extends the runtime of the first movie to its greatest possible length by re-adding deleted scenes and other items that were cut from the theatrical version. Now don't get too excited. We're talking about an 8-minute increase divided amongst 10 scenes. So some 1-minute additions here and there, not like a whole movie or whatever. But it's a fun watch for you Back to the Future scholars. By fun, I mean they will have fun. You will not have fun hearing about every little noticeable difference, but they will have an absolute blast to the past. Chronological Back to the Future. All right, imagine, if you will, a version of the Back to the Future trilogy story that was chronicled chronologically. I'm deeply unhappy with the phrase chronicled chronologically, but there it is. All I can do is highlight it and hope to get a laugh, which is how I deal with most of the problems in my life. Everything's fine. I'm fine. Imagine, if you will, a version of the Back to the Future trilogy that started with the oldest events and went from scene to scene chronologically as though the events were in a history textbook. Hey, if you really wanted to do it history textbook style, we could throw 5 questions at the end, which are easily answered by skimming the text and don't really address your comprehension of the events whatsoever. What did Lorraine mistake Marty's jacket for when he was in 1955? So we begin in 1885, move to the 50s, up to the 80s, then the future. It's a new and different way to watch the movies, maybe the perfect thing for anyone who's seen them a billion times and might like something just a little different. Back to the Future, the reality cut. In this version, we start out as normal, but at the key moment when Marty prevents Lorraine's dad's car from hitting George McFly, which means Lorraine and George don't have their meet-cute/reckless endangerment moment, Marty fades out of existence and the movie ends right there at the 45-minute mark. I cannot tell you what deep respect I have for this cut. The regular cut does kind of break some rules as I understand them. Why does it take time for Marty to slowly fade away? Wouldn't he just pop out of existence the way too much of my paycheck does because people insist on making pencil cases that look like this, an adorable little seal? And I mean, the prices are in yen for these pencil cases. So who knows how much they cost? It's probably nothing, right? Anyway, what I love most about this cut is that it's basically a huge amount of work to make one joke. As someone who writes entire newsletters with the goal of squeezing in one Demolition Man joke per issue, I feel very seen. Run, Marty, Run. A mashup of the movies Run, Lola, Run and Back to the Future, in which Marty McFly wakes up in 1955 and has 3 chances to relive the same day and right all the wrongs. The most common complaint about this one is that it's pretty incomprehensible if you've not seen both movies, but come on, why would you watch this if you hadn't seen both? Besides, we've all seen the American version of Run, Lola, Run, which is Groundhog Day. We get the concept. You know what's underrated about Groundhog Day? They really knew how to make Pennsylvania winter look frigid and miserable in a way that's very relatable. I mean, I love winter, and even I see someone step in a pothole filled with water, ice chunks floating on the top, and it chills me deep. The Hill Valley Chronicles. Probably the best, most intriguing fan edit. Someone cut together all 3 movies into a 10-part prestige TV series of 30 minutes per episode. And it works beautifully. It's an incredibly fun, refreshing way to watch the same movies again, and because we're not getting a Back to the Future remake, which I applaud, I mean, come on, Hollywood, there's plenty of garbage to remake and make better. Steve Kostanski, beloved director of Psycho Goreman and Frankie Frico, is remaking Deathstalker. Now that is a remake I can get behind. The original Deathstalker movies weren't without their charms, but they haven't aged super well. And with Kostanski's signature use of practical effects and just enough self-awareness, I'm sure that, there I go again. Let's get back to the Future. I think this fan edit serves up something that's a little new without feeling the need to add modern needle drops and probably references to, TikTok. Things fan edits share in common. Even though there's a huge difference between a fan edit that takes apart Pulp Fiction and puts it in chronological order, and a fan edit that replaces all of Star Wars orchestral music with rock music, I see a lot of things in common among fan edits. Fan editors love movies, especially the ones they play around with. You'd kind of have to. In order to know a movie well enough to do it right, you have to know every line, every scene. You have to be able to dig into a movie deep enough to pull character expressions for reaction shots, effects shots that can be moved around, all sorts of stuff. Another thing fan edits share is their questionable legality. You won't find fan edits available to stream in typical places. This is because most movie studios don't particularly want people replacing their movies with alternative versions, which is not totally unfair. These are kind of like the bootleg VHS copies of the Star Wars Holiday Special that used to be traded at cons, the under-the-table entertainments that we all want to see, but that we know executives would never allow. And there's something wonderful about that. Something I think the world has been missing. In our age of instant availability, maybe it's nice to have things that are just a little bit of work to get. Maybe the satisfaction of watching a fan edit is a little higher than getting another entry in the Fast and Furious series with a couple clicks. Although, once we have Ludacris in space, I have to acknowledge that Fast and Furious is almost fan edit proof. What would you do that's wilder than that? What I would say to you if you want to make a Back to the Future fan edit. I think that's awesome. Now, I'm not your attorney, nor am I an attorney at all, nor am I totally sure that I even finished Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney on the DS. But I would guess that so long as you aren't distributing your fan edit, if this is something you're working on at home in your free time, just for funsies, maybe with a small screening for friends and family, you'll probably be okay. Lots of great artists learn by tracing. Lots of musicians learned by covering songs. I think you can definitely walk away having learned a lot by editing a movie, especially one as good as Back to the Future. And if you're looking to do a fan edit with a built-in audience, I have some ideas for you. Back to the Future Primer. You know that movie Primer where some guys invent time travel in their garage and then use it to, I think, work the stock market? I was about to say someone should edit that together with Back to the Future, but the more I think about it, the more I think I'm disinterested in infecting Back to the Future with anything related to personal finance. Honk shoe. Back to the butterfly effect. One of the most important things that we can do with time travel, and keep this in mind if you ever get the chance, would be to go back and turn in better scripts for the butterfly effect sequels. I know you're probably saying there were sequels to The Butterfly Effect. Yes, there were. And yes, there's a reason you don't know about them. Back to the Furious. Marty enters a street race with the DeLorean, accidentally pulls the other racers back in time, and the current Fast and Furious cast meets up with themselves from the first movie and spends 90 minutes trying to convince them that from their humble beginnings as underground street racers, they will eventually witness Hobbs flex his way out of a cast, drive a submarine, and see Charlize Theron get the same bowl cut I had in 3rd grade. Back to the Demolition. Marty ends up in the future where he joins forces with John Spartan, a rogue cop who was in cryo prison for a stretch. A buddy cop movie with Marty McFly and Stallone at Van Damme's peak. Demolition Man was after Stallone's peak probably, but mid-Stallone is peak Van Damme. Fight me on this. Unless you're Van Damme, in which case I'm very sorry and I loved you in Time Cop and The Quest and of course Hard Target. Back to Yes Fest. We have a bunch of Yes Fest footage, and splicing it together with Back to the Future would be incredible. Okay, yes, you got me. This is a shameless plug for Yes Fest. I mean, come on, cut me some slack. You just read like 2,500 words about fan edits. I'm walking a line here as it is. Nobody is going to let me write this much about nonsense if I don't at least put some kind of, hey, there's a library over here sort of stuff in here. So come to Yes Fest and maybe check out a book or two this week. Use those databases. Email us and tell us how much you like these newsletters. Unless you hate read this entire thing, which, wow, I admire your commitment. And that's our September newsletter. We'll see you in October for what, promises to hopefully be a very spooky edition. Woo!